If you watched any of the last 3 or 4 videos on this channel, you've met Diane. Diane is an estranged mother who does a terrible job of being an estranged mother. What she does do is she makes videos complaining about her daughter and blaming her for Diane's own actions. And somebody mentioned in a comment on one of the past videos that she's a grifter, that she used to make videos on real estate and anything to just sell. It clicked when I realized that she has too many people in that group chat of hers. And $20 a month is a lot to just be in an estranged parent group chat. I understand there being a paywall because you don't want people just signing up to troll, but 20 is you trying to make money of other people just trying to find a community of people that relate to them. Early September, we have a new video from Diane in the Estranged Parents YouTube channel. Aftershocks from being dumped by your own child. What's next? Stage 2. This is a follow-up to the last thing that we watched, so I already know it's going to be annoying. Diane is just, at this point, a waste of time.
Aftershocks from being dumped by your child.
Still did not fix her mic. A lot of feedback.
Let's discuss. What happens next? You are likely experiencing actual trauma in your life. If you've never gone to war, if you've never had any kind of major loss in your life, this may be traumatic for you. Ambiguous loss. Let's talk about this concept. It is characterized by a lack of closure and ongoing uncertainty. So
when she speaks about grieving her child as if her child is dead, she fails to realize that she's the problem. In attacking a lack of closure, you fail to realize that your child is also never going to have that, but your child made the decision to let that go for their own well-being, and you're pushing against it. If you're a parent, if you're a good parent, you'd worry about the way that your actions make your child feel. And then yours secondary. Yes, you're going to feel bad. Yes, it's going to suck, but it's going to suck more for your child when you're pushing yourselves into them and they have very, very, very obviously made it aware. They've made it very obvious that they do not want to be around you. And that's all that is.
So, is my child dead, alive, happy, sad? You don't know. Ambiguous loss can lead to complex and endless grieving if not addressed, and wounds can be reopened pretty easily if you see them on social media,
She sounds like I do whenever I'm trying not to burp. Like when I'm like starting stream and I'm just drinking coffee and I'm like,
hear about them from friends, if you run into them or see them at the
Diane, you're not live. You can re-record this. You can chill for a second.
supermarket, wounds can be totally reopened. The key to dealing with ambiguous loss is accepting that closure is impossible. This loss may continue indefinitely and there may be no resolution. So you have to make peace with that. I think it's really important to acknowledge.
I think we all have ideas of who it is that we are and ideas of what we would do in situations, and not always the practice. I think I would do this in this space is a lot different than I would do this in this space. It's like when people talk about what would they do if they were in a fight and they're always like, oh yeah, I think I could beat someone up. Everyone thinks that they're a better than average fighter in some sense. And then you have no idea what you're doing when you get punched in the face. There are so many situations in my life where I can say, I know what I would do because this is what I did last time. I know what I would do if I had a gun pointed at me because I've done it twice. I know what I would do in breakups. I know what I would do if my dad called me. I know what I would do in these situations because I've been through them. There are plenty of situations where I have no idea and I can only think. I think that if we're at TwitchCon and for some reason somebody like runs up behind us and steals me Matt's wallet, I think that I would run after them. But I don't know. This is another situation where parents, specifically parents, think that in any situation, they're going to want what's better for the kid. But then it happens and the kid says, hey, what's best for me right now is not to talk to you. And the parent is then faced with this reality of, you think you would do what's best for the kid, but is that what you're actually going to do? And the answer is almost always, and always in these situations that we've been looking at, I'm going to do what's best for me, not my kid. And then I'm going to complain about it. Congrats, Diane. We all think you're a bad mom.
The trauma. I mean, for me, this was the most traumatic event of my life. But trauma.
Good. Some of us got beat every day growing up by our parents. Not every day. That's dramatic, Max. Parents like that enjoy the idea of being good parents, but they don't want to put in the work to actually do it. That's why they get estranged. Yeah. And she said it in that one video where she's like, I did my best. I birthed you and I fed you and I clothed you and maybe I didn't buy you candy all the time, but
is relative. And for me, my mom died when I was relatively a young adult. That
how
was
old
the
were you?
most traumatic thing in my life formerly. I had a miscarriage. That was actually very traumatic.
That could be very traumatic, yeah.
My dad died during my estrangement, which was also kind of traumatic. But the thing
that was recent. She brought that up in a video.
The thing about the parents dying is that even though my mom died way too young, you do expect your parents to die. So society has ways for dealing with actual death, and that helped me through it. But my child, my firstborn child, leaving the way she did was completely unexpected.
At this point, she has brought up the one reason she's willing to share about why her daughter left so many times and has outed herself as being that person historically. Because the first time she brought it up, she said, and I thought that was more of a problem between her and my husband, Ted, because I'm not even that political. But then in ensuing videos and in that one live stream, she talks about politics a lot. And she talks about her ideas and the way that she thinks and the things that she does and says and everything. And so it's very obvious that this is the person that she is. And she didn't just keep it to herself. She didn't not say it. She's definitely shared these ideas with her family because she's so open to sharing them with the internet. So for you to then follow all that up with, I didn't see it coming, it was unexpected, that's because you're stupid. I guarantee you her daughter brought it up. I guarantee you her daughter said, hey, you're doing this, that hurts me. Hey, I don't enjoy this. Hey, whatever. And she refuses. She refused to acknowledge it then. She refuses to acknowledge it now. You didn't miss anything, Marie. It's just moms being bad moms. Diane being Diane.
Never thought it would happen. Thought we had been good parents. And so, to me, who's never been to war, I've never had a major health scare. So I've been very lucky in that respect. For me, this was the most traumatic event of my life, and it still is. I have never gone through so much heartbreak. That was just my reaction as a mom, being rejected by a beloved child. That's just my response, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
You should apologize for your response because your response was to not respect your daughter's boundaries. If you had grieved to yourself and even to the internet about it without blaming your daughter and also making her a victim of your relationship afterwards, then okay. But that's not what you're doing. What you did was then actively seek out your daughter when she asked you not to, scroll through her social media, watch her videos, read through comments, expecting them to be about you.
I felt terrible, and it is natural for any mom who's poured into a child to feel terrible, and dad.
I agree. It is absolutely natural to feel bad when your child does not want you in their life. It is not natural to insert yourself into their life repeatedly when they've asked you not to and then ignored you. You didn't have to text her. 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 And you did not have to text her. You also did not have to go through her social media, comment, read through comments, again, expecting them to be about you. She did that. She went, and we just went through comments looking for ones that were about us.
Dads too. Don't let me forget the dads after something like this. So this can be traumatic. And it's not so different from some of the symptoms of PTSD. Now, I invite you to look into that. Again, no expert here. Some of the symptoms of trauma, though, that I do want to touch on, you may relate to. So social withdrawal is super common. After this, you
I think that's more common in men, however, to withdraw socially than it is for women. I don't remember the statistics, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it's way more common in men. But like, yes, obviously. She's reading this off somewhere, right? She's not making this up, or at least she shouldn't be.
You start avoiding the activities that reminded you of this event. You withdraw into yourself, your own world. You withdraw from friends who remind you of her, family that reminds you of her. Also losing interest in things that you liked doing. Emotional numbing, basically, is super common, where you're just kind of cruising through life and you don't feel anything. That is very common. Other common trauma responses are nightmares, confusion, disorientation, mood swings. There's a whole lot more. Again, I invite you to look into it. It's important with ambiguous loss to recognize the necessity of processing it. So you really need to engage with the grieving process, because that's what this is, rather than trying to avoid it, to facilitate healing. Healing is a very active process. You need to face it head on. The truth is,
you should find a way to define your healing, right? You should find a way to say, in a sentence, what healing means to you, because it should be finding a way to move on from situations that were not your fault and learning to let go of things that, again, were not your fault. However, in healing for her, it ends up becoming something like, oh, it's my daughter's fault. Whatever, she doesn't want me, I don't want her. It's something stupid.
Loss is a part of life. People come and go from our lives. And sadly, that includes our children. We need to remember that we raised them. They're off in the world doing their own adult things, and we've done our job. They've flown the nest. They're gone. Maybe we didn't expect them to never come back, but their choices are their choices, and we have to move on. How to live with ambiguity is an important skill to learn. We'll talk more about this in coming videos. One question you can ask yourself is, what does this estrangement mean to you? This is a good journaling exercise. What does this estrangement mean to you? It's a way to find meaning in what's happening. You can ask yourself, how do I let go of what I can't control? Who am I now that my loved one is ambiguously lost? What do I do with my conflicted feelings? Another good question to answer that will help you kind of normalize the ambivalence.
A really, really important thing that she's never going to get to is, one, you should recognize what it is, right? Recognizing that this is the situation that you're in, regardless of whose fault it is. A good question for these people would be, did I do anything to cross any boundaries that were set? And they're never going to answer that honestly. Because we can list off so many things just based on what she's willing to tell us in these videos, and I don't think she'd repeat them. I don't think she would ever be able to manage wording anything like, I texted my daughter after she asked me not to, in a way that would make it sound like she's crossing boundaries. I think she would say something like, I kept my texts between me and my daughter to only ones that seemed important or like it was an emergency, like when my father died. Like, she would use that example instead of all the time she just texted her. Also, she has said multiple times that she was given a list of reasons by her daughter. She just did not think they were valid. She didn't think the reasons were good enough.
How do I both let go and still remember, which helps you revisit attachment? How do I find hope in an ongoing loss with no closure? Another idea for dealing with the ambiguous loss.
Can I ratio her? How many views does this have? 2.6K? I can ratio her. These sound like generic questions for you? No, she definitely found them online somewhere. There's bullet points that she makes and then she kind of just talks. But like, none of these ideas are hers. And they shouldn't be. These are all things that have happened before, and you should learn from other people when you very obviously cannot learn from yourself.
Which helps you revisit attachment. How do I find hope in an ongoing loss with no closure? Another idea for dealing with the ambiguous loss, because when you grieve someone at a funeral, there's a ceremony, friends gather, there's a party afterwards. Party is probably the wrong word, a celebration of life afterwards. There's a whole ritual around when somebody dies, and a community.
Party's really funny. Just like, my kid died. Now I can party. Now people don't have to think I'm a bad mom. who brought Super Mario Odyssey. And I'm thinking of the sand level where they have like the mariachi people.
Community comes together to help people grieve the loss. For ambiguous loss, there is no such ritual. So I suggest, or, think about making one of your own. So, for my husband, he got to a point where he was just, I guess, he had moved through the grieving process, and he had kind of a little funeral in his mind for our daughter. He was out on a walk in the woods, and he just pictured her kind of angelic with her favorite little baby toy.
That is nuts. To hold a funeral for someone in your head because they did not like the relationship you were handing them and decided to set boundaries with you is wild. She's gonna cry, and I think she's allowed to. You're allowed to be hurt. This is not like a fun situation to be in, but she's definitely on the wrong side of it. She speaks of this like it's a breakup, right? And imagine breaking up with someone, and to get over them, you're like, oh, they died.
Daughter. He was out on a walk in the woods, and he just pictured her kind of angelic with her favorite little baby toy. Where he wished her the best and let her go with love. And that helped him. Some people write letters and then burn them. Mm-hmm. So perhaps you can think of a ritual that might help you move through your grieving process at the end when you are ready to let go. What to expect as time goes on? Get comfortable with chaos is my big advice to you. Get comfortable with chaos. You're going to go through a whole bunch of fluctuating emotions, and they're going to come and go like the tides, not even that regularly, and it's going to be all over the place. It's going to be a whirlwind. So get ready for a roller coaster of anger, confusion, sadness, coming and going at weird times. They may change, lessen, or resurface during significant dates or events. Mother's Day is always a hard one for people. Father's Day, the child's birthday is always hard. Holidays can also be very difficult, especially if you used to gather and now you don't. But just be prepared to adjust to
We're never going to hear her bring up how her kid may feel. Ever, 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 ever. Because she's saying it. She's saying holidays may be hard. Their birthday may be hard. All of these things may be hard. And if it's probably harder for them. She's never going to bring that up. Because guess what? One of you gets to celebrate Christmas with your family. And it's not her. It's not the kid.
A new normal. It's just important to admit to yourself that life has changed and it is 100% out of your control. You also need to prepare yourself for triggers, anniversaries, holidays, birthdays.
Again, I get caught up on some of the words she uses, and sometimes because I think she uses them wrong. Other times because I know the way she's using them. And like she had that whole like thing against being woke multiple times now. And so when she uses the word triggers, she's like, triggers?
Prepare yourself for triggers.
Triggers? I hate. I hate that.
Anniversaries, holidays, birthdays, and family gatherings, like I mentioned before. I suggest you mark them on your calendar and make plans for dealing with them and just make new traditions. Make new traditions. Evolving relationships. Estrangement may affect your relationships with other family members and friends, so just be aware that might happen. Some may offer support while others might not understand your experience at all.
I am not going to let go of the comment earlier of the person saying that they were mad at their brother for holding a relationship with their mom after their mom slept with their ex. What a time we had.
Some may offer support while others might not understand your experience at all, and they may pull away. So I would be ready with various answers to that question. How are the kids? Especially if people haven't seen you for a while. You need to come up with various answers depending on how well you know them, and have 3 answers for the 3 different types of people. You know them really well, you know them a little bit, you don't know them at all, want to end the conversation.
My answers for those things are typically the same, regardless of who you are, unless you're like my partner. Good, fine, fine. Diane is not someone who's going to shy away from attention. And I cannot imagine a world in which Diane gets asked by anyone how her kids are, and Diane doesn't go, oh my God, listen to this. you have to sit down here and just blame your kid for this.
How much time does it take to heal is a big question that a lot of people want to know. There is no set answer. There's no answer to this. I've seen it range from 1 month to 30 plus years, and they're still not healed. For me, it was about 3 years. Why? Because I found my way through this process, and I was determined to not let this ruin my life. And during my estrangement, I watched my dad die. And it was another reframing of life is short. And this is what it is. And I am not going to live my life in misery. And I knew I needed to heal and move on. So I resolved to do it. And like I said, it's a spectrum, 95% there. Yeah, sure, something may reopen it. Even if that happens, it's temporary. I'm just moving on.
How healed can you be when you refuse to ever acknowledge that your kid is also probably hurting? Like at some point, there has to be an understanding of like, this sucks. It probably sucks for them too. And not once in bringing up her child has she ever been like, that sucks for all of us.
I would also say for this to work, you need to trust the process. We all have ideas about how life should be, you know, what we expect and deserve as parents. We all have these ideas in our head. We may talk about leaving it to God or the universe, but we don't, because in our heart of hearts, we can't let go. Surrender.
Which is probably a big reason why your kid does not want to be around you, because you have this like set idea that you should be in control. And if you're not, you freak out. That's understandable. That's a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. But when it comes to other people, more specifically your children, you have to learn to grow out of it. You just do. You're going to disappoint yourself and you're going to ruin your relationships trying to control other people. And you may not think that's what it is, but it is. It is. When you think you know what's best for them and you tell them that.
Surrender is key. Can't let go. Surrender is key. There is a moment of truth in life where you just have to let go. Self-reflection and responsibility.
Oh, dude, like, I don't even know. I don't know. How do you even bring this up without realizing how ironic it is that you just have none of this? That you've not taken a single bit of responsibility for this. And if you do, we go back to the video where you go, maybe I didn't buy her candy. Maybe I didn't buy her the candy that she wanted, but I did a good job. Dude, watching these suck. I gotta tell you, like, no one has to know. If you're a bad person, or you have bad ideas, or you have these like thoughts that you don't want to have, but you have and they're not good, no one has to know. If you kept them to yourself and decided, hey, what if I just didn't say this out loud? You'd be so fine. Instead, you get on the internet and just make yourself look stupid.
You must be compassionate with yourself through this process. You do need to understand your role in the estrangement. We each had our role that we played in our individual estrangements with our children. It's kind of like you have to peel back the onion, peel back the layers, and just see what's there. It is important to acknowledge what was done and to learn from any contributing actions or inactions that we as parents may have had in the situation.
We have watched no less than 10 videos from this channel. 5 or 6 of them directly from her where she's speaking to a camera. Not once have I felt like she was taking responsibility for anything that she's done, nor has she brought up anything that she's done that may have been negative. The only thing she has ever said that may possibly be her fault is when she said, I'm not even that political, which is her removing herself from the blame that her daughter projected onto them, onto her and her husband. And she said, not me. Maybe Ted.
Definitely highly recommend putting yourself in your child's shoes and imagine what they may have been thinking or feeling as they were making their choices in the midst of whatever was going on around them. This can be hard to do, but it is super, super important. But the number one rule through all of this is to be compassionate with yourself. Self-compassion. Like you would a friend. Remember, rule number 1, treat yourself like you would a friend. Don't get into that habit.
That's a good life rule. You should speak to yourself the way that you would speak to other people. It's a easier way to be nicer to yourself. However, I don't think this woman should be nice to herself. I don't think anyone should be nice to her. Even Ted, dude.
Of letting the shiz talker talk you down and make you feel like crap. You need to be compassionate with yourself as you examine what went right and what went wrong, and sift for anything you could do to make it right. Or if not, just process what happened and make a plan for going forward. You definitely need to embrace vulnerability in your self-reflection. So, you're going to confront some uncomfortable emotions and truths about your behavior and impacts. Do it kindly.
I struggle with the idea of handing people advice you wouldn't follow yourself. I think typically we give people advice we wouldn't do ourselves when we understand that the idea of it, again, going back to the idea of like doing things versus actually doing them, is a lot better than the practice. And so her saying things like, confront that some of it may be your fault and then lead into taking accountability, knowing that she's not done any of that is wild. Yes, that should be a part of it. If this is the situation you're in, you should be able to be like, oh, here's some reasons why, actual reasons why this could be where we got. But she's done none of that. And that's infuriating. Like, she's going to sit here, and it's not like I'm missing something. It's not like I haven't watched any of these videos. We've watched all of them. This is the newest one. And so for her to sit here and be like, make sure you take accountability for the things you may have done while spending hours watching her not do that is awful. Do it. Why can't she make a 9-minute video, 6-minute video, 3-minute video going, these are the reasons why I think maybe my daughter has decided not to speak to me, and just let it out. Or you could do what everyone has been asking her to do in her comments. Everyone except the other parents who are just delusional, where they go, drop the list, drop the list, drop the list. Your daughter gave you a whole list of reasons she doesn't want to talk to you. And you have not shown any of them, minus the one political one because you thought you were right. And then she goes and she said it. I'm not dropping the list because that would betray. I don't remember what she said, but in essence, it was because it would cross one of her daughter's boundaries. But you did that. You did that already. You already crossed boundaries. This is where you draw a line? Is it because it's embarrassing to you? Is it because she's right? It's because she's right, because those reasons are valid. I also would not talk to you.
We all mess up. It's okay. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. Just bring whatever mistakes there are to light, reflect, learn, forgive, and move on. Distinguishing between guilt and responsibility is really important in this phase. Guilt is an emotional state that often involves...
Yeah, no, she's getting that watch time out of me. Yes. She brought that up in the video. She's like, and you people that say bad things, you probably don't even watch all the video. According to my analytics, you only watch half of it. Unfortunately, I watch all of it. The good thing is I watch it with you. So, you don't have to give her the view. I'll give it to her.
Important in this phase. Guilt is an emotional state that often involves that self-blame that I was talking about and remorse for perceived wrongdoings or failures. And this can be paralyzing or even self-punitive. Responsibility, however, is an action-oriented approach. Blame that I was talking about and remorse for perceived wrongdoings or failures. And this can be paralyzing or even self-punitive. Responsibility, however, is an action-oriented approach that involves acknowledging one's role in a situation.
Again, it's so wild to me that she's willing to bring up responsibility when she's not taken any of it. Not once has she said, these are the things that I did. I'm at fault for this. My issue, my problem, the thing that I said is nothing, not once.
Situation and taking proactive steps to address the issue, promoting growth and change. very different, know the difference. Reconciling your own heart. So you want to use insights gained from self-reflection to make changes in your behavior toward others, especially with the relationships that you still have around you. Because sometimes something we did with the estranged child that maybe drove them away is something that we're doing with other people, and maybe it's time to fix that. So I went through a period of acknowledging my role, my daughter's role, my husband's role, and I chewed on it for a very long time. Despite what the internet thinks, I chewed on it for a very long time. I did apply compassion, although not at first, and I did end up forgiving.
When? Because I have not seen it at all. I did.
Compassion, although a very long time. I did apply compassion.
When? You said not at the beginning, and from then till now, I haven't seen it. And this is not an old video. This video came out 2 days ago. So when?
Although not at first. And I did end up forgiving all three of us for the mistakes all three of us made. And this opened the door to acceptance, healing, and peace. Compassion towards self and others is so important. When you wander into the weeds of self-accountability, bring yourself compassion. And I know I'm beating this dead horse, but it's that important. Owning up to mistakes and learning from them is a sign of strength and maturity. The compassion.
She's right. It is a sign of strength and maturity. And then she didn't do it, but she's going to advise other people to do so. And this is, you guys remember, for those of you that were here, when she was, when the very first interview that we watched was with like a life coach type person, and she kept giving general advice that she very obviously did not follow. We are finishing the estranged parents video that we could not finish yesterday because my internet went out.
And I know I'm beating this dead horse, but it's that important.
She looks to me like someone who would be the dead horse. Like if I saw somebody just like pounding on a dead horse, just horse carcass, and I was like, hey, stop that, and Diane turned around, I wouldn't be surprised. Not at all. Try it.
Compassion also that you bring to yourself must extend to your child, no matter how hard that is.
There's some things where I just can't imagine speaking from notes. I understand that you wrote all this down. I get it. But it's so robotic. Like, oh, let me read what I wrote down about compassion. You should have compassion for yourself. Also maybe for your child. Extend it to your child. You should have compassion. Your
child is also doing the best they can with what they know, given their mental, physical, and environmental circumstances. So we always say that to them. I thought
she was going to say given their mental health. Like she was just going to say all of them have mental health issues. Like obviously if my daughter doesn't want to be in my life, she's struggling with her mental health.
Best I could with what I had. Your child is in the same position, likely doing the best they can with what they know in the situation they're in. And, you know, this is just how it worked out. So in the aftershocks phase, there is a period of assessment where you essentially look at your own chessboard, what's happening there. So you want to identify, number one, key relationships that you still have, map them out. You know, not just with your estranged child, but also other family members, friends, and colleagues. Who's still in your life that's important?
This would have been really good. It would have really, really funny if she had actually like dove into the chessboard metaphor. If she was like, oh, you need to make sure you have some connected pawns. All of your pieces are protected. If not, can you move a knight to protect a rook? Just like went in.
Important. Draw that map.
And at the end, she goes, I know what I'm talking about. My ELO's 2,200. My daughter, when she left, she was only 400. So obviously she was wrong.
Recognize those who are actually empathetic and listen and are there for you emotionally.
She's undefeated is white. Take that how you will.
But also look at these relationships to see if that similar pattern of conflict or behavior exists.
Actually, in someone else's video, another person's video commenting on this or reacting to it, whatever she did, had Diane and like a little, I think it was like a Ku Klux Klan thing. I'll just see if I can find it. I have to.
And are there for you emotionally. But also look at these relationships to see if that similar pattern of conflict or behavior exists, and take steps to correct it with those you still have. You want to understand people's different communication styles. So take a look at your own communication style and compare it to your estranged child. You know, where did you maybe clash just on a style basis? Misunderstandings and conflicts can easily arise when we don't understand where the kids are coming from, how they process information, and how they communicate it.
So true, Patty.
You also want to analyze behavioral patterns. So observe and reflect on the recurring patterns that may have led to the negative outcomes.
This is like a moment where like her daughter is consistently brought up politics, like, hey mom, stop. You voted for Trump in 2016. Don't do it again. Hey mom, don't. Hey mom, hey mom. And she's like, there's a behavioral pattern here. There's an issue. I don't know what it is, but my daughter's not acting like my daughter.
And consider both your behavior and the responses. What were the dynamics at play? Definitely take a look at the external influences. How have external factors played into this estrangement? Stress, societal expectations, cultural differences that may have influenced the situation and perception within your relationship. And consider that these are, just considering these gives you a more nuanced understanding of what's happening. You also want to nurture your remaining relationships. So be honest with those closest to you. If they're not supportive, then maybe reassess that relationship. Definitely,
maybe not if they're your kids, but yeah.
You want to really appreciate the diverse perspectives that empathetic friends and family can provide, and have an honest conversation with any children who are not estranged, just about what's happening.
My issue here is that she is not one of the people that can have a conversation with someone who thinks differently than her. Diane is someone who, if you're not going to sit there and tell her that she's right, she's not going to sit there and listen to you. And we find it in the way that she like hearts and replies to comments in her comment section. She'll heart comments that she thinks like that are like positive towards her, and she'll reply to them a lot of the time. For comments that are negative, whether or not they're like negative period, comments that are negative towards her, that are like, hey, I think you're wrong, she will not interact with under any circumstance. Not to say, okay, yeah, I see you. Not to say, that's fair. Nothing. She just won't interact with it. She has to be right, and you have to tell her that she's right, or she will not interact with you.
And be prepared for any kind of reaction. They may be with you, they may be against you, they may not want to hear about it. But do be honest with them about.
Also, like, that's so weird. Like, yes, of course they don't want to hear about it. Like, imagine going to a family gathering and sitting down across from like every single teenager and being like, my daughter doesn't talk to me anymore. I'm going to tell you why.
About what's happening and how you're trying to cope with them and how that may affect your relationship, or how you're trying to not let it affect your relationship. You do want to step outside your box during this process. So I would say consider giving and receiving support to other parents going through this. Helping others helps you heal. And I would say open your heart to new ideas, new ways of looking at things.
Chess.com.
You want the parents going through this. Helping others helps you heal. And I would say open your heart to new ideas, new ways of looking at things. You want to work toward that surrender. Now, in the aftershocks phase, the reach out or not reach out question always comes up, and there's no one answer. It depends on your situation. The reach out or not reach out question always comes up, and there's no one answer. It depends on your situation. If your child said, don't contact me, it's probably best not to reach out. Let them have their space. I learned this the hard way.
By not respecting boundaries.
After reaching out multiple times with no response, I was instructed not to contact unless it was a family emergency. There were 2 family emergencies that I did contact her for, and there were probably 4 other non-emergencies. I'm thinking it was about 4 that I probably shouldn't have done it. I wish I had known.
What do you mean you wish you would have known, dude? She told you. Why didn't you believe your daughter? Why didn't you believe your daughter? Why didn't you extend that to your daughter? I should have known to take my daughter seriously. I should have known to treat my daughter like a person and not like an extension of me for my bad ideas and just harbor this hate that I hold on to.
That I probably shouldn't have done it. I wish I had known. If your child hasn't set a clear boundary, then maybe approach lightly perhaps by sending a birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas
Don't
greeting.
do that. Don't do
card,
that.
text, whatever.
You have to understand that holidays are harder for your kids than they are for you. One of you gets to spend that time with your family, and it's not the person that had to leave. So chill out. Stop making life harder for other people. And then coming onto the internet and pretending that you're helping anyone. You're not. You're giving people who are also bad parents a platform to be bad parents.
But I would acknowledge their need for space and keep your expectations low. If your child has blocked you on social media, in the beginning, you'll probably look for ways around it because the internet is public and, you know, in the aftershocks phase, we're still trying to figure out what's going on. And so we'll try to see clues by looking at their profiles if we're able to see them. Some platforms can't block access. You know, Facebook, you can block access. I think Instagram, you can too, but some you can't, like TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, X, and LinkedIn. They can't really block access.
You're stalking your daughter on LinkedIn, dude? How? I don't have a LinkedIn. I know what it looks like from like videos, but like how do you stalk someone on LinkedIn?
But I recommend weaning yourself off looking at them on social media over time because it's like picking a scab. It's just picking a scab. It's just, you know, preventing you from healing. Try to wean yourself off of it. If your child is addicted to drugs, alcohol, or is abusing you, abuse, verbal or physical, is no one has addicted to drugs, alcohol, or is abusing you, abuse.
At what age can your child physically abuse you? Because like if a 4-year-old, and like again, this isn't like real to this because her daughter is not 4. A 4-year-old punching you, right, does not affect you. If a 4-year-old came to you and like punched you really hard in the leg, that does not affect you. You should probably figure out why they're doing that and where they learned to do that. But that's not like physical abuse. You are fine. A 14-year-old, maybe, right? Like that's much closer to your size, especially if you're a mom and like that's a man or a boy, I guess.
So I would like to establish that baseline. No one has the right to abuse you, not even your child. Drug and alcohol addictions can actually steal the soul and morph your child into someone completely unrecognizable. So I guess I would just say, do what your heart drives you to do to help in that situation and maybe connect with other parents who are in that specific situation to get their input as well. Do what your heart drives you to do to help in that situation and maybe connect with other parents who are in that specific situation to get their input as well. But the child must want to save themselves. And if they don't, I'm not sure there's much you can do. If your child has just disappeared, I would...
She spoke of this one way. I guess in context, it wouldn't make sense for her to be like the parent is abusive in this situation. But I think she should have mentioned that. Because I think in most of these situations, if one person is abusing the other, it's the parent abusing the child.
If your child has just disappeared, I would say this is kind of a follow your heart situation. Do what you think needs to be done or not. There's just no right answer. You can network with family, friends, coworkers, or anyone who might know something about your child's whereabouts. You can hire a private investigator if necessary, but consider the consequences. And this is a very invasive way to go, and I would be prepared for the worst, the best, and nothing found. And whether or not the private investigator contacts.
So like the two things are like pretend they're dead, or if they go missing, just assume they're never going to be found. All right, Diane. If I was Diane's kid, I'd also want to go missing.
Contacts or not contacts, again, really tricky ground. People who've, been contacted by a PI at the behest of their parents. It's a huge invasion of privacy.
Yes, it is.
And I don't see many reasons to go there. But of course, the choice is yours. What about the grandchildren? This is a really hard one. If your child forbids contact, it's really best to respect that boundary. And it is terrible to deprive a young person of the relationship with their grandparents.
Not if their grandparents are bad people. Yeah, there's a difference between depriving someone of a relationship between them and their grandparents and saving them or keeping them safe from abusive grandparents. That's all that is.
Because that offers a completely different perspective of life, but you kind of have to respect the child's boundary unless there's some extenuating circumstance like the grandchildren are being abused, neglected, something like that. Grandparents in this situation will sometimes accumulate cards, letters, gifts, or family memories for the grandchildren to receive later in life, scrapbooks. Or if the boundaries are less clear, you can try sending the occasional notes, cards, and gifts, which may or may not be well received. Again, there's no right answer. Online resources. Educating yourself around this entire parental estrangement topic is a good way to heal. I invite you to join my newsletter to receive a list of resources that helped me heal. Here are your action steps from this
newsletter
video if you would like to proactively pursue healing. Number 1, think about doing a release ritual. What would that look like? Number 2,
sacrifice a child.
Again, spend at least 5 minutes every morning being thankful for anything at all. This does wonders to help reset your mind and move you to
a video series like this. The exact opposite. The exact opposite. Being the kid who has no relationship with their parents. But then like pretending that Diane's right. She's like, I did abuse my dad. Every time he threw me, I cried and that bugged him. Every time I was 4 and he just beat me, I would cry and that would hurt his ears. And I did it on purpose.
For clarity, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a mom who's gone through it, sharing with you what I've learned along the way.
I'm a mom who's put my daughter through it. Is a much better way to say that.
Next time, we're going to talk about emotional triage. How do I cope with this crazy roller coaster of emotions that I'm going through?
If I could find the woman who made this. So she has like a little Confederate flag, KKK member. What does this look like?
Hello. When I made the last video, I hadn't actually seen all of Diane's one. I had nightmares about the Nazis running the world.
So what happens when young people grow up roaming freely in this seemingly friendly yet subversively hostile?
This is the video she deleted. This is the video Diane deleted. This is the video Diane deleted. This is the video we didn't get to because Diane deleted it. Whoa, wait, where's part 1 of this?
Hello, in this...
Hello. Oh. That is... Okay, yeah.
Hello. Somebody put a comment under one of my videos saying that Diane, the narcissistic mother who I've made videos about in the past, has put out another video and that it's worse than all the rest. In the past, I was very sensible about never watching her videos before I went to bed. In this case, I did. And then I went to sleep and I had nightmares that
Diane deleted a video and I had a screenshot of all the videos on the channel from when I posted in the Discord, like, hey, we're going to watch these together. And then we were missing one when we got there. And I never got to watch it. And if it's one where she's comparing the children to Nazis, that's wild.